You are witnessing an historic event that took 70 years and a remarkable twist of fate to finally materialize. Here at the Denver Art Museum, and in America for the first time ever, the Chinese national treasures of Beihong, founding father of modern Chinese painting, are on display.
This is the very first time that this wonderful work of Beihong is shown outside of China. His work is a national treasure to the Chinese, and we here in Denver, we want to make it known to our audience here in the United States.
Beihong is a master of styles that straddle East and West. His works and influential methods changed Chinese art and culture forever. While his creations have appeared alongside other legends in Europe and Asia, the ravages of war kept his masterpieces from ever appearing in the United States.
他深切希望到美国展览，但是因为珍珠港事件爆发，他没有能到美国展览。
This exhibit is the realization of Beihong's dream. It may not have been possible had it not been for a special Denver connection and the story of a chance friendship that began in Paris in 1919.
Beihong learned Chinese painting from his father, Xu Dazhong, and after he was trained in the basic techniques of Chinese brush painting, he saw some illustrated books depicting European paintings, and he became fascinated with what was being done in the West. And he was able to receive a government stipend to travel to Europe, to France, to study painting. He was one of the first Chinese artists to study European-style painting.
Shortly after arriving in Paris, Beihong met a young and charismatic Chinese literary scholar and master at French language named Xie Shoukang.
Beihong arrived in Paris in 1919. Xie Shoukang was already living there and had been there for a couple of years. And by chance, Beihong got to stay in the hotel or apartment complex where Xie Shoukang was living. Now, Xie Shoukang was a great man of letters, well versed in European arts as well as in Chinese arts, so it was perhaps inevitable that they became solid friends.
As fate would have it, Xie Shoukang is father to Denver's own cable television pioneer and philanthropist, John J.C.
While growing up in China, Beihong's name was bigger than life. He was obviously the most outstanding Chinese painter, and later on I learned that he is the actual leader of the modern Chinese painting movement. And I was surprised that my father was his best friend.
They spent every day of their lives together and were closer than brothers. Beihong shared a vivid memory of his dear friend. Xie would buy live carp and eels, raise them at a small pool by his home. He cooked very well and was famous for it.
And they even started up a literary society with another couple of members that sort of helped exchange ideas between those various intellectuals.
This is a treasure, and my mother left it to me, and it's the original pencil sketch of my father by Beihong when they were both students. And you see the cigarettes and the smoke. It's just a beautiful pencil sketch by the master.
In 1925, Beihong returned to China, a refined master of sketch, ink, and oil painting. Although he spent 10 hours a day painting, he was restless and looking for something to stir his soul. He decided to found the Nanguo Fine Art Academy to teach new generations of artists.
The traditional way Chinese artists learned how to paint was to copy other paintings. They learned from copying the masters. So they learned brush technique and composition and the use of ink on white paper or silk, and learned really art by studying art. Beihong, through his training in Europe, came back with a fresh idea for China. That was, you look at figures, you look at human models, you look at the animals, you look at landscapes, and paint from life.
We are all, each one of us, a little held by our culture. And so when he went from China and then went to Europe and studied and observed, he melded these ideas together and then came back to China with wholly new ideas. And we're going to be able to see that.
And what he developed that continues to this day was a core curriculum that all students have to follow in their first and second years.
As war continued to ravage China, Xu Beihong was deeply touched by the spirit and suffering of the Chinese people. It is here that Xu Beihong focused the power of his craft. He paints the first ever monumental oil paintings with epic Chinese themes.
One of the important paintings that is coming depicts a Chinese official from thousands of years ago, and he's going on a mission that he knows will eventually lead to his death. And he is followed by 500 warriors that go with him, and it is Xu Beihong's method of showing something from Chinese history of the distant past to refer to things that were happening in China in the 1920s.
My father was one of the peasants in the huge oil painting.
For years, he traveled much of the globe exhibiting his work. All of the proceeds from his exhibitions went to the Chinese people who were suffering from the war. A testament to Xu Beihong's influence, when the People's Republic of China was founded in 1949, Chairman Mao wrote a letter to Xu Beihong addressing him as a friend would, asking for a quote. Ultimately, Xu Beihong became the first president of China's Central Academy of Fine Arts. Meanwhile, Xu Beihong's dear friend, Xie Shoukang, became a brilliant and charming diplomat, serving as Chinese minister to Brussels, the Chinese cultural ambassador to several European countries, and China's ambassador to the Vatican during World War II.
I grew up in Shanghai under Japanese occupation. It was a difficult time for my mother because my father was in Europe, but we couldn't say where he was because he was working with the nationalist Chinese government and we were under Japanese occupation. So we were living this lie, if you will, of where my father was. In 1949, we both went on the last ship from Shanghai to Taiwan. And then a year later, we emigrated to America and on a cargo ship. We always thought and believed that American streets was paved with gold. And when we came and we saw the cobblestones of San Francisco, it wasn't what we dreamt about.
It wasn't without hard times. Out of money, and to avoid sending his children back to Europe, Xie Shoukang was faced with the harrowing decision of leaving his two children, John and Charlie, at an orphanage in America.
So Charlie and I sort of huddled together, cried a little bit, and said, well, you know, as long as we're here, let's not take another boat. And that's how we spent the next 3 years without speaking much or any English.
It isn't until 1987 John and Anna C. visit China for the first time in their adult lives. This trip becomes the first of many where John begins reconnecting with his father's history and Xu Beihong.
We decided that it was a great idea to bring all the works of Xu Beihong to America for the first ever exhibition. Most people in the United States do not know much about Xu Beihong.
Xu Beihong's works are coveted by international collectors, fetching as much as $10 million for a single painting. He created a new form of national art that still resonates in the work of contemporary Chinese artists today. Most of all, he gave artists courage in turbulent times to express themselves.
His most famous iconic image, one might say, is the galloping horse. The use of ink on paper manages to capture the movement of the horse absolutely beautifully. Besides that, what he's trying to show is the desire for the Chinese people to be running free.
Today, a national museum near his house in Beijing is the permanent home of these treasures. Had it not been for the efforts of John J.C., Xu Beihong's family, and the Denver Art Museum, this extraordinary event may never have happened.
I would hope that visitors would be able to come to this exhibition and see how an artist observed his own culture, respected his culture, went to Europe, observed the painting culture or the culture there, and then brought a new thought and a new way of looking at painting and a new way of expression.
We're very proud here at the Denver Art Museum to be able to show Xu Beihong's work here in the United States, and we're very grateful to Xu Beihong's family and to the Xi family.
这个愿望一直到他去世都没有出现，没有能够做到。这次能到美国展览，我想北红在天之灵也会感到高兴。
I'm sure my father would be very touched, and my mother would be delighted that we can mount the first ever Xu Beihong exhibit in the United States.
The lifelong dedication of two visionaries, Xu Beihong and Xie Shoukang, was to bring together Western and Chinese cultures. Today, through this exhibit, that destiny is finally realized.